Welcome to this very special edition of the Author's Voice with KAJ, a show where we explore the stories behind the stories. Here we dive into the worlds created by authors, discover their inspirations, and ensure that you walk away enriched and inspired. And today we have with us author Annie Riley. She has a degree in accounting and MBA. She pursued a meaningful life in the business world, but after that, a lot of things changed, and then she came to this book called "The Human Ideas Newest Ecosystem," and she also developed a theory known as Idea Sphere. We'll talk about all that straight away from Annie herself. Welcome to the show, Annie.
Thank you so much for having me. It's very nice to be here.
Same here, same here. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Annie.
Yeah,
And I'm sure not just in India, this idea sphere and human idea, it's not just for, human beings only in one part of the world, but across
oh,
the globe. A lot of people will
absolutely.
benefit.
Yeah. Humans come in all the countries from last time I checked. So, yes, indeed.
Absolutely. So we'll
Yeah.
talk about. But before that, Annie, for a lot of people, just a little bit about your background, your journey, so that people know who they are listening to.
Sure, sure. I think I grew up in the United States, one of 12 children. Back in the 1960s, I was a kid, and that was a very turbulent time in the United States. And it sort of formed how I look at things, and I really have questioned from the beginning. My dad was a scientist, so I think I've always thought we have to make sense. Humans have to make sense scientifically, and a lot of times we've thought of humans as a such a unique entity on this earth, which we are in many ways, but we also connect to everything that came before us. And I wanted to know how we connected. And I spent a lot of time through my life just reading things and trying to figure out where the connection points were. And maybe, I don't know, I just read enough after 50 years to be like, oh, I see them. But I was able to put together the theory of how humans and nature not only connect, but how we have changed the rules of the game. And that some of the things that we could have learned from nature or could learn from nature, we have not yet understood. So I wrote a book about those connection points and how they could affect humans, and how we can make a better world. And I go back and I start with nature because that's the one proven point we have in the world. If we look at how bodies and cells work, they've been working together as cells in a body for millions and millions of years. And I think that's where I found the clues to having better societies.
Absolutely. So this particular book, of yours, it's not an easy book to write. If I look
No,
at it from that point of view, we will come to the challenges part. But
right.
I want to understand your mindset. Firstly, how have you dealt in this book? Secondly, how should people, did you write it with the mind of an optimist or a pessimist, if I may use that word?
I am a natural optimist. And I think what drove me to go on this journey of thinking and trying to figure this out was because I thought there had to be a better way we could run the world. I grew up where we ran under our desks as for bomb shelter tests for the atomic bomb, just in case we could survive an atomic bomb. It's like, really? This is what I grew up with. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. And I think I'm a natural optimist that always looks for the good in things. And I think what I found was a naturally optimistic way to survive by using the rules of survivors, and doing it in a way that it turns out to be morally um, good, I would say, even though I hate to use the word good because it's such a value loaded word. But in nature, when your cells in your body work, they work together to make you as a body survive, but also all the cells get to survive. And I think that is a great model for societies, that we should make societies benefit or help all people do well and help the society do well. And if you do that win-win, you have the best chance of success in the world. And I think we have a model that shows us exactly how to do it. We just haven't been able to glean that model until maybe the last 50 to 100 years. And so what I do in the book is I take those um, keys to success and I translate them for how humans actually behave. And then I say, here's how it could look. But it's just a starting point. I want people to think about these things and come up with ideas based on this mindset.
Absolutely. So tell us a bit about the book, because the human idea, Earth's newest ecosystem. How
Right.
should people understand it? How have you divided this, different
Okay.
chapters, different things? A bit
Sure.
of detail so that people can understand.
Sure. So the book is divided into three basic parts. The first one talks about, I would say, a third of the book talks about nature. Another third talks about humans and how we live in the world. And then the last part talks about how our human systems could look different. And in the first part, the nature part, I explain kind of from the Big Bang forward how life works, how all living beings use competition and collaboration and coordination in combination to survive. And then I look at how humans use those same techniques because that's all we've got. Humans can do, two things. They can compete or collaborate. And if you collaborate, you have to be able to coordinate or organize how you collaborate. So, but humans do it very differently than nature because we have this skill, our ability to think and create ideas, which is where the term ideasphere comes from. And that ability to choose which ideas to work on and act on is very different from nature, who just has information to in their DNA to live by. They don't have any other, it's not like they get to go to school and learn, like bees don't go to school to learn all about flowers. They don't. They only know what their DNA tells them about flowers and what they can do with flowers. But we can learn all about flowers and all about bees, and we can learn, all kinds of different things. We have beekeepers and we have horticulturalists, and they can make all kinds of amazing, they can create hybrid plants for all we know. But the idea is humans can do that thing that nature can't, which is to think and manipulate their thoughts into some action and make stuff, make clothing and buildings and societies that nature can't really do to that extent. And so the problem is, because nature has been very slow and they have taken their time, and anything that didn't work very well got basically died out. Nature has evolved over 4 billion years to have a very successful model. And they do things in that model that we haven't figured out yet. For instance, I'll just give you an example for here in the United States. The coordinating function in a body is the brain, right? The brain and the neural system. The brain doesn't actually do any of the living in your body. It just coordinates all the other cells to live. And so that equivalency in societies is our government. Government doesn't do or shouldn't do the work of living. It should do the coordinating of the people to succeed in the society. But in order to do that, the brain is protected. It has all kinds of stuff around it to protect itself from all the other cells. So the cells can't influence them in any other way. The brain does its job for the good of the body and for the good of the cells, and that's what it does. But our governments here in the United States, we have, almost legalized bribery with our lobbying system, where you can have people come in, pay legislators or pay people to get elected, and then those people respond to the interests of those people who paid them, not the good of the people. That's a complete violation of the Constitution. And we don't protect our elections or our government from those kinds of actions. And if you were a body, that body wouldn't work very well, because it would be equivalent to a heart cell going to the brain and saying, "Hey, give me all the best stuff going my way. Give me all the better nutrients. Set it up so that I win as the heart and I do better." Well, guess what happens? The body dies because the body needs all the parts, but we do that all the time in our societies. We have rich people who pay the government to do their bidding as opposed to the good of the people, and that can cause real problems.
Absolutely. So let me understand it from a common person's perspective. Who is better equipped, humans or nature, to survive and thrive?
Well, I would say nature by far, because nature's been doing it for 4 billion years, and we've only been here at the most a couple 100,000 years. And not only that, but we have a new tool, and we haven't figured out how to use the new tool yet. Nature's been using their tool, and they're evolving. I mean, it's like when you ask nature, and that's kind of a loaded question because nature includes all of the animals. If you look at the current, like nature right now, the current animals, including humans who are here, are the winners in evolution's life, right? They are the ones best fit to this current environment. And they have been the winners. So they've taken all the successful strategies from earlier on, and it's built into their DNA. So when you see an animal, you can see, including humans, billions of years of evolution present in that animal. And humans have come along and they have a new tool now. And we have not learned how to use that tool very well. That's why I wrote the book. And so we are actually the first animal that has come along that can actually destroy ourselves. And most other animals just don't have that pull in nature. They fit in the environment, but they can't kill the entire world. We can. We can destroy everything, including us. And we're the first species who can do this. And we're sort of a double-edged sword because we can do amazing things and we can do really destructive things. And we have this superpower of choice and thinking that allows us to do both. And we have to use our brains and our thinking to corral our actions to make sure we survive. And this is where nature has, I think, the upper hand. They know how to survive. They've been doing it for billions of years. We have a new tool and we don't really know how to use it. So why don't we look back at these tools and see if any of them can help us? And I think they can. I think I go through several things that nature does that we could learn from. Everything nature does can't be just taken over to humans. It has to be translated into the human choice, into the human idea. We have to come up with ideas, but if we start with the goal that nature has, that every cell gets to survive, every cell should have the chance to survive. And if we operate our societies that way for the good of the people, then we can, I think, build better societies. And that's where my optimism comes from. It's like, oh, this makes sense to me. So maybe if people can read it and start thinking about it this way, they might have really great ideas to help us build better societies using these tools. And they come down to this one idea, which is that because people like to choose, we want to maximize the choice people can make in life. But if you're going to maximize choice, you have to minimize the harm you do to others. And that is pretty easy one-on-one, but when you get into corporations with a lot of money and power, they can harm people pretty easily. And they're like, well, we're making a good product, but we're polluting the air and the water. And, we can, because air is free and water's free. And all of a sudden, people are getting harmed from the accumulation of this effort in a corporation. And I'm not saying that happens all the time, but it can happen. So the mindset needs to be that you maximize choice and minimize harm in all your actions, in the laws you make. And if the laws try to do that, I think we would have better societies.
Absolutely. Let me understand for the audience this way. In terms of smartness, who is smarter, nature or humans?
It's a good question. You have to define smart. I would say humans have a wider ability to act, right? They have a wider ability to act. Humans can think. They can process the word why. They can ask why. And they can, and I don't think most animals can ask why in the same way we can. So I would say that humans have taken an evolutionary leap into being able to think and be aware. They are aware that I think animals are aware that they exist on the earth, and they have instincts that tell them how to survive. We can go beyond instincts to choose how to act. And that's what our unique capability is. And obviously it is useful and beneficial because it's obviously an advantage to us to be able to think, look what we've done with the world. We've survived. We have 8 billion people on the earth. We've done a pretty good job of using our evolutionary advantage to our advantage. But we're also on the edge of now using that evolutionary advantage to our disadvantage. And, with climate change, with, nuclear warheads, we have a lot of ways to unravel our society, our civilization, our humans. And if we do that, we'll leave this earth, and the nature will remain. Nature will remain if we, drive ourselves into extinction. And, another conscious being will arise because it's an evolutionary advantage. So it's going to keep coming up. If you look now, there are animals around that have very large brains. And when you have a large enough brain, you can use some of that brain power to process ideas. And octopus, dolphins, crows, all of these creatures have very large brains. And one of them will evolve into something like what humans are, but maybe they'll be smarter at doing it better than we are. Or maybe we will survive after a lot of trial and error and find the way to do it. I always look at, do you remember Star Trek from back in the 60s?
Yes.
So the Star Trek, they had the prime directive. Do you remember? There was always the prime directive. They had to follow the prime directive. Well, the prime directive there was don't interfere. That was the thing. The message was you go out, and Captain Kirk blew that every week, right? He was always interfering in whatever program we were watching. But there was a prime directive. And if they did the prime directive, the idea was that everybody would be okay. We would survive. Well, I think our prime directive is we can maximize the choice of humans, but we have to minimize harm to each other and our environment. If we do that, we can all survive. And if we can all survive, then we can evolve to be better and better and better at building societies. It took the nature 4 billion years to come up with these very intricate animals that we have today, including humans. So we're only been at it for 200,000 years with our we're in the babyhood of our ideas and how we use them. And what I'm afraid of is that we're going to be like some of those creatures that were really, really successful, but just couldn't make it because they couldn't fit in the environment. In our case, we're going to kill our environment ourselves. And the other animals will make it, but we won't.
Absolutely. So that is where the idea sphere comes. Where is this idea sphere? Where did you get this idea of the idea sphere?
It was sort of, I understood, I've read a lot, and I really got how nature worked. I could see, how there were this sort of, if you start at DNA in the middle, and that the DNA, was built into a cell, and the cells made organs, and organs made bodies, you could see the progression of how of human beings, or not being any beings, were built over time, evolved over time, I should say. And then I got to humans, and every time I would get stuck because I'd be like, but humans have minds, they think. And what happened is I went back to how Albert Einstein, when he was really struggling with the idea of relativity, he said, well, let's just assume that things generally work the same way. So let's make that assumption that things work the same way. And let's see if I can just put it down, even if it's not right. I just want to put it down that way. So what I did was I said, well, if there's DNA at the center, and then there's, cells and organs and bodies, let's start with the same bit of information with humans, which is an idea. And an idea is equivalent to DNA. It's just like we store ideas in our head like our cells store DNA. And I thought, well, and that's what makes us human. We hold those ideas and then we act on them. Oh, and then when humans work together, like cells work together, we make institutions. And not just businesses, but we make religions, and we make book clubs. We make all kinds of institutions. And then even bigger than that are societies, and our societies are equivalent to a body. Once I was like, oh my gosh, that actually is equivalent. And so that structure, ideas, people, institution, society, is what I call the idea sphere. It lays right on top of the ecosystem and is totally dependent on the ecosystem, right? We are still members of the ecosystem. We have to eat. We need resources to survive. But instead of just going out and, digging up a root and eating it, we build institutions to create Cheetos, or, milk cows for milk, whatever. We can translate our ideas into actions. Those actions are something no other animal can really do. And so the sum total of all of our ideas plus the actions, the things we create from those ideas, is what I call the idea sphere. And it lays invisibly right on top of our ecosystem. But we affect the ecosystem because by doing some of these ideas, we pollute the world, we change the nature of, the landscape, we dam up a river and that has ramifications. All of these things that humans do have echoes on nature, and sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad. And for thousands of years, nature was so big that it wasn't really affected. But now we've sort of changed the equation, and now we're damaging our own physical home. And that's my big concern. And another reason I wrote the book was, how do we stop this train wreck?
Absolutely. And that is where comes who owns this idea sphere, because the powerful will again own it. The powerful will
Right.
again manipulate it, and the common person. You can see it in artificial intelligence also.
Right.
A few
Right.
companies having the biggest say. How do you want to democratize this idea sphere, that real people can actually access the real idea?
Yes. Well, it's a really great question. And at the core of humans is this concept of choice. And right now we are in a very imbalanced situation. And I never thought of it that way, as who owns the idea sphere. It's like saying, who owns nature? Nobody owns nature. But then people try to, they try to own nature, right? They try to get water rights and they get land. I mean, we do that all the time. So the way I want to answer that question is to look back at nature and say, okay, who owns your body? Which cell owns your body? None of them do. None of them. They all own the body together, which is like how we look at democracy, right? Is all the citizens own the country, and they choose leaders to run the country, right? We don't, the body doesn't choose brain cells to run the body. They've evolved that way. But the brain cells are the ones who run the body, but nobody should own it. And so what we ought to do, just like in our body, is we have to do the things that make it so that every cell, every person gets the opportunity to thrive in the society. And right now we have a huge problem with income inequality. We have a few people who have all the resources and money, and they run things. That's how we are set up right now, and that's what doesn't work. It will never make an effective society. What a body does is it says, okay, I eat my breakfast, right? And then the body, the stomach and the mouth, they take 100% of all the stuff I eat into my body, right? And then what does the body do? It distributes it to everybody. So in a sense, there's 100% taxation on the stomach, and everybody else is a freeloader, right? But not everybody is a freeloader. They're doing heart work and kidney work and circulation work. So they're doing their jobs. It's just more efficient for one person or one organ to consume the stuff, and everybody else does their job to get it out to everybody else. And that's the goal of the body. The body just keeps working like that. Nobody says, oh, I can't do the kidney stuff today. I'm just too tired. No, they do that all the time. But if you look at a society that way, the people who um, participate in the society should pay what I call a revenue tax. Every um, income, every wage people make or profit or or gross revenue they take in, they should pay a small piece off the top to the government. That's their price of participating in the society. And then in order to keep the society working well, you don't want big pockets of resources stuck with a few people because they will take those resources and game the system. So what you have to do is you have to have a very high income tax on the big earners and the high wealth people. Not so high that they're disincented to start companies, but high enough to distribute those resources so that everybody gets the opportunity to do well in the environment. And the more people who do well, the more even the tax system can become. But we're in such a situation of inequality that it needs to be addressed first before we can start acting even like a body. If we were a body, if our societies were a body, we'd be dead. It just doesn't work very well. We'd be struggling along with maybe a really big stomach and no kidneys barely working and hearts barely working because it doesn't work that way. We'd have we'd be huge, have a huge tummy and nothing else would work, right? That's what we have in our societies. And it doesn't work very well.
Absolutely. Have you ever thought that perhaps spirituality is the secret passage to this idea sphere for the common man? And before the oligarchs will realize, they would have the idea sphere for themselves.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Spirituality, I really didn't address spirituality or emotion in my book. I stuck with this one concept, and didn't want to muddy the waters because it's really hard to measure spirituality, even define it. Everybody has a different definition.
It's rising. It's rising at a very rapid pace globally.
Yes. And I think what happens is I think spirituality is sort of a way for people to say, how do I deal with this world? And they use, and I think it's a reflection that there's a lot of the world we don't know about. The universe is 6% matter and 94% like dark matter and dark energy. And that gives me pause. When I realize that, I think there's a lot of energy running around us that we can't access, right? We can't measure. I don't know what it is. I don't know. And I don't think humans know what it is until we measure it. I mean, if you think about it, thousands of years ago, things that like the sun coming up every day was considered a godlike action, right? And really, now scientists are like, no, that's just a star. And we know this, and we know this, we know this. So science has a way of narrowing the concepts of spirituality because science can measure things and they can define things. And they go, oh, but there's so much scientists don't know. And because they can't measure anything or they can't access it. I always tell this very interesting story about when my father passed away. Before he passed away, I used to go and visit him and I played him this song on my iPad, his favorite song, played it all the time. And then the day he died, I was at home with my other family members and that song started playing on my phone, which I never used to play, to play the song for him. I always use my iPad. There's my phone, not touching it, all of a sudden playing this song. And I'm like, there are things I don't know in this world. I don't know. That energy from my father moved to me in some way that I have no idea. But it was such a clear indication of what I don't know that I was like, I will just accept that as something that my father was sending to me that I don't know about. And that is kind of what spirituality is. We don't know things and we are free to kind of think about those and decide what we want to, how we want to have that in our lives. The one thing I will say, though, is with humans, because we are thinkers, And because we have ideas, all these thoughts and these emotions have to come through this brain process. And so we lose something in that process. We gain a lot, but we lose something in that process too, is we lose that more innate sense of things that maybe animals have, that because we so have to process, in order for us to understand things, we have to process it through our brain. We lose a little bit by going through that process.
Absolutely. What was the most challenging part of writing this particular book?
Oh God, so many parts. I think the hardest part was understanding the two structures and how they matched. And second was trying to figure out how to write it in a way that was interesting to people. And I started off and I first wrote a fictional version of this. It was like a Socratic dialogue, which I thought, oh, this is going to be so much easier for people to understand because there's a conversation between two entities about this idea. And it turned out that was hard, I think, harder for people to understand, which is why I wrote the human idea, which is just, here's the theory. And what I tried to do was make the science in it very accessible, to compare, always bring back and compare nature to humans, and to always make it easy for them to see the 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 step-by-step approach that gets us up to human societies. I start with the Big Bang and I get to human societies, and it's actually kind of painless if you just move along. But I think when you start with science, some people are like, "Ooh, I'm scared," but it's nothing to be afraid of. I think I make it as accessible and understandable and a little bit funny, for people to enjoy the read.
Absolutely. So, in a nutshell, what message, key insight do you want the readers of the book to take away with them?
What I want readers to understand is that a society that maximizes our choice and minimizes harm is a really good foundational tenet, a foundational, um, approach to have better a better world. And it's not just a government level. Every place we look, every time people get together, there's a coordination effort. In yourself, it's your values. You have to have your driving force, that's your values. In a family, it's parents. They do the coordinating. In an institution, it's the management. They do the coordinating. In a society, it's the government. They do the coordinating. At every point, if the coordination effort is to maximize choice and minimize harm, you will have better have better entities all along the way. And that's what I want people to do, is understand that and live their life that way, and they will be probably happier and calmer about the world, because you can figure out the solutions to problems a lot easier, because all you have to do is start asking, where's the harm here? Where's the choice here? Which choice do I want to maximize? Which harm do I want to minimize? And if you can start thinking that way, problems resolve themselves a lot easier.
Absolutely. So, after this, any other thing in the pipeline? Any book?
Oh, I have a lot of things right now. I have a lot of stuff going on in my personal life, so I've kind of just trying to get through those. But I do want to start writing some practical applications to this, mostly just to give people ideas. I give people a lot of ideas to start with, and I really do want people to disagree with me. I want people to come up with better ideas than I have. I'm not an expert. I'm a very high level thinker, but there are like experts on education and homelessness and police violence and social media. I want those experts to weigh in with this concept and see if they can come up with better solutions. That's what I really, really want the world to do, is to see this as a plausible foundation to work from.
Absolutely. There is much to learn and understand about these things from you, Annie. And I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn more about you, your work, your Earth's newer system, and the idea sphere. What is the
Yes.
best way for them to connect with you?
The best way right now is thehumanidea.com. That's my website. That's kind of where I'll have everything, up. Um, and I'm on social media. I'm not on Twitter anymore. I kind of dropped Twitter. I had a little in the United States, you might notice that we're having a little problems over here with our democracy. So I haven't supported Twitter, but I am on Blue Sky now. You can find me there, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook. You can find me on all of those links. And just hang in there. I would really love it if you bought the book and then bought another one for a friend, because I think the idea is new enough that it's going to require people to really look at it kind of closely for a while. But once you get the hang of it, oh, it makes life so much easier. And it's really an easy, what I really want people to understand, it's an easy concept to say, but to get the background of it, to understand how it's how it's grounded, I think is really helpful to making you go, yeah, it's not just an ideology. It's sort of grounded in the thing that has worked for billions of years, which is nature. And it's respects nature, but it also understands that humans are different, and so it draws it past nature to say, well, but we're humans, so this is how we have to do it. And it gives people a pretty pragmatic approach to how to, I think, make a new world.
Absolutely, absolutely. All I can think of right now is Victor Hugo's words, that about the idea itself, talking of ideas fair, that nothing
Uh-huh.
can stop an idea whose time has come. Maybe
Right.
the
Maybe
idea,
it is. Maybe it
it
is.
is. It
Okay.
is
Oh,
that.
I hope so. I hope so. And I hope that people will look at that again, because we need everybody's ideas to make the world a better place. We have 8 billion people, all of who have ideas, and we could use some good ones.
Absolutely. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of The Author's Voice with KAJ. Thank you so much indeed for
Thank
joining
you so
us.
much for having me. I've so enjoyed this. You're always such a fun host to chat with.